Hi, Linda. Welcome to Astrology Alert. We haven't talked in a while, but I'm sure we're
No,
going to
and
cover a lot of
everybody
ground.
writes me and says, "Where the hell's Andre?" I said, "I don't know. I heard he hooked up with some dame and took off to."
Yeah, right. That was it. That was it.
As
But
your
I'm
wife,
back.
as your wife hands goes through and smacks you upside the head.
I'm back now. See, I mean, right.
I
That's
gotta give
exactly.
a good story. I mean, we don't want boring that you had a lot of house things you needed to do.
Yeah, it's pretty boring. I was away for a little bit in California, but really overall, it's been this household thing with doing renovations, and all of a sudden Mercury retrograde hit. And I normally, I'll say to people, don't overplay Mercury retrograde. Yes,
Oh,
it can be a problem. But I think this time what happened is Mercury retrograde got kind of entangled in that eclipse because it's the same degrees as the eclipse plus Saturn. And once you start adding all that energy, then I think it increased the effect because I saw all kinds of stuff, dishwashers, computer stuff, mixed messages, just a
oh, even
constant.
today we were supposed to meet earlier. For some reason, in my mind, I thought it was later. And you're like, he calls me and said, "Linda, is this you?" I said, "No, it's Joe Blow down the street." Hell yes, Linda. Who the hell? People can't handle my humor sometimes. But anyway, so I said, "Oh my God." I was actually ready to go, but I was waiting for the time. So, like I
Right.
told Andre, I was watching a murder mystery.
Yeah, no, and that by the way, that is the classical, not really, it's not a big deal, but it's Mercury retrograde in spades. That kind of thing where people get their appointments mixed up or something is very classic as one of the
Right.
effects. And
Post chemo, I really had a bad case, no joke, of short term memory loss. I
um,
don't know how many times I showed up at the doctor's when it wasn't my appointment. I would write it down. Apparently, I even wrote it down wrong. I was really worried about myself. I still have some remnants of it, but it's not as bad as post chemo immediately.
well, it's okay. This one is no big deal, right? Here we are,
Right.
so it worked out well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. So one of the things, because I mentioned in my video yesterday, you have a strong sense about Beto, right? Beto in Texas.
I don't know why, but and my love, Sterling, who I adore. And sometimes him and I don't necessarily agree.
Mhm.
He saw too much cheating going on for Beto to win. But for some reason, I always feel Beto's going to win. Every time I throw the cards, it shows he's going to win.
Yeah, that one, the problem for me is that I don't have a time for Beto or for Abbott. So then there's a big hole in there because all it takes is the kind of time that would favor one or the other in a really strong way, and it could break wide open. So I can see reasons for either winning, but it's just not from the astrology. It's a huge risk to say, well, I'll just say because he has this or that, he would win because it's not clear enough. But I certainly hope so
I
because
do too.
Texas is just a total cesspool. I mean, I just can't believe the way they approach, their
Oh my
humanity. I
God,
mean,
this whole shooting escapade. And I told you earlier, and I'll tell everybody now, and I'm going to do a video later. I feel very much that this going crazy, shooting people for no reason is going to get worse before we start really jumping in on this. I'm feeling not necessarily schools, but I'm feeling random shootings. Like, we were just talking in Wisconsin, they had it. It's almost every day there's a random shooting. And I feel that's going to be taken care of.
yeah, and actually the astrology backs that up because this whole thing ramped up. Jupiter entered Aries around the middle of May, a little before the middle, and then Mars got in there, and that was really precise, concurrent with those two, the two big Buffalo and Uvalde, and now it's continued. Aries is the place of firearms, and so you've got Mars and Jupiter there. Mars alone is enough to do it, but Jupiter adds extra energy. And the thing is, that place in the zodiac is really aggravating the US planets because they're in early Cancer, so you get a square. So what you say is perfectly logical. Like June, Mars continues in Aries, Jupiter is moving, forward to square the US planet. So yeah, could definitely do that. But it's also what you say that this can lead to change because it's in the public consciousness, and
Right.
you hope that that some of these GOP guys will get a heart or will get a brain or will get something, to
Right, because
make
you
them
know how I
realize.
see like something bad is how I see the news media, and I see it plastered all over the news media. So I say, I see we interrupt this program. So it feels like there's going to be constant where it's enough that the news media is picking it up. It's so tragic. I don't know why, and I wish I didn't get that, but that's how I remember one time I was working labor and delivery. I was upstairs talking to the girls, and all of a sudden I got this hit. I said, oh my God. And they said, what? I said, something major is going to happen that's going to be on every news channel, every single news channel. In fact, it's going to go on for over a year. It's not all we're going to talk about. They said, what is it? What is it? Is it an earthquake? I said, no, seems to be involved with some sort of scandal or a murder or something. And that next week was the OJ.
Oh, well, OJ.
And you couldn't hit it. I was right about that.
Don't bring me back to OJ. I remember that I felt so much rage about that because it was sort of the beginning of the, in the 90s. I mean, compared to now, it was mild, but it's just such a sham, I mean, they had.
Well, that the prosecutors, they blew it because they took home evidence. They took those shoes of his home with them. They left the car out for any Joe Blow. They were able to prove that there was no continuity of, everybody may think, yeah, he did it. In fact, he wrote a book that he did it, but they couldn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt for that.
Yeah. And
it's also a little slap in the face for what happened to, was it Wood?
Can't remember.
That gentleman who got hit so bad by those police by batons, and they let him off.
Rodney King.
Rodney King.
Yeah. That was that's the thing. And it's also that, I mean, all these things got together because with OJ, there was I think there were a lot of African Americans on the jury, and they weren't going to convict him, even though, I mean, I'm sorry, but
but listen, they had every right not to convict him. Sure. I was having a bad pregnancy with my son. And so I was home every day, and I watched from the beginning to the end every single day. I'd listen to that trial. So I was as good as being on the jury. And by there's no preponderance of the evidence. In criminal, it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt, and they just messed it up too bad.
Well, if you and I had been on the jury, I would have argued with you because I thought he was guilty.
Well, no, not based on the evidence, but Marcia and that other guy writing love notes between each other, it was ridiculous.
Yeah,
but anyway,
that's something. Yeah, that by the way, that's another astrology hit. That was Pluto square the U.S. moon, and that's when I remember that it hit me how, with Pluto transits, which we've been under, we're on the Pluto return, and that Pluto tends to really amp up the racial stuff.
Okay.
So that's exactly what that was. There was this in the air. I remember that one of the Shapiro, one of the lawyers said, we played the race card and we dealt it from the bottom of the deck. That's what he said about the way Johnny Cochran and those guys were doing it. But I remember connecting it to Pluto, and in a way it explains.
And OJ was beloved. There was people that loved, white and black. My neighbor down the street, he loved OJ.
Oh yeah, no, he was a famous, beloved athlete. Yeah.
So what do you want to talk about today? Did you take a look, see at the current events coming up in the United States?
Well, you and I were saying about Peter Navarro, right?
He got arrested, ladies and gentlemen. Not asked to go down. I mean, handcuffed, arrested.
Right. And by the way, this goes to, I think, to an important topic that it's good to remind people, because people get really impatient. You go back to a year ago. Why isn't Trump getting arrested? Okay, a number of reasons. Number one, it wouldn't have been politically smart, as an example. Number two, our system is run by lawyers. Okay, just you got to get that in your head. And these people have money, and when you pay lawyers, they can delay. It's very difficult to prosecute people right away. However, you see them slowly but surely. I mean, this Navarro guy was on TV basically explaining how he was conducting an insurrection. He told Ari Melber, well, I did this. And Melber said, are you aware that you're confessing to a crime? I couldn't believe it. So now, anyways, I don't have his time, but there's enough there. You always see what happens with that chart is that, well, not always, let me backtrack, but without a time, and you notice a person gets in trouble like this, you'll see one or two planets getting hammered, which is what's happening to him right now. The problem is I don't know exactly where they fit in the chart, but there's enough there for sure for him to be in a jam.
Big
right?
trouble. And it's the DOJ went after him.
Who went after him?
DOJ.
DOJ,
went
yeah,
after him.
yeah.
And everybody
exactly.
was mad at the DOJ. They're working on it. Trust me, they're working on
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And the other person that I saw a clip on who people have asked about is Steve Bannon. And apparently they're investigating him, or apparently there's a rumor, or there's something about him being charged on a state charges for the thing that Trump pardoned him federally, right? Because remember that he scammed those people with the wall thing?
Yeah.
And when you look at his chart, it's interesting that you see that his chart really gets in trouble next year when Saturn switches to Pisces, because he's a mutable sign, and he likely has the moon in mutable as well. So then the Saturn 2023 is a hellscape, right?
Oh, I
And
love
so
it.
that's another example of someone who appears to just be cruising along. The guy's got a podcast and he's talking, blah blah blah. Yeah, well, sure, but if you've been doing things, eventually, people that are in DOJ, they have something to gain too for their careers, even if you don't even think pure justice, right?
Right.
So I think he's another one that could find himself, facing the music. Maybe not right away, but that's the way I think it's moving, in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel good about, now, did you ever take a look-see at, let's see, we talked about Peter Navarro. Pompeo, that Spain wants to take him back to their country to testify about trying to kill Assange.
Yeah,
Apparently they wanted a hit on him, but did you see, I've always seen Pompeo going down over something. Is it this, or could it be something else? Do you not have a chart on him?
I do. Pompeo. So Pompeo, actually I have a time on Pompeo. And yeah, he is at pretty severe risk, because with Pompeo, the classic, he's in the year of the Saturn return. Okay. So,
Okay.
But his Saturn, which by the way, this is another really interesting thing. This illustrates the way planets work. This guy last year, when Saturn, remember back in the fall, it was September, October, November, when there was that horrible thing with Gabby Petito and all that. It was a bit of a turbulent period.
It was horrible.
Saturn was stationing, and it's stationed square his Venus, which is Venus is your sense of your own attractiveness, your own beauty. And when Saturn squared it, he went on a massive diet and lost a lot of weight. Remember that he was looking at it? That's because Saturn is the planet that does that. It leans you out. In fact, you are unlikely to do something like that unless Saturn is in the building, so to speak. So in that sense, Saturn is very useful. So that was that. But now Saturn is returning in his chart this year, and it's in the career house, the 10th up there, but it's in a challenging alignment. And Saturn return is hard for anybody. And I think it's going to be extra hard for this guy. And here's the other thing. It rules the legal house in his chart. So here's another one getting ensnared, but he's not tied to, that I'm aware of, he's not tied to any of the insurrection shenanigans. So you're mentioning Spain. Now, what's curious is the legal house is also the long distance travel foreign country house. So yes, there could definitely be something there. Yeah.
They may be able to prove, because, he wants to try to run for president. I've never seen him win.
I'm deeply skeptical of that,
So have you heard any news on Rudy Giuliani, or have you glanced at him lately?
I have not heard any news, but Rudy's chart is a complete mess. This is a guy that is, it's like any moment, kind of like what happened to Navarro, right? You're sitting on a big pickle, and then one day someone knocks on the door. And Giuliani, it's endless. It just keeps going and going, because he's got a lot of Leo planets, so he's getting massive Saturn action until next spring. But then it doesn't get any better, because his mutable planets kick in after that. So it goes solidly for 3 years. And you can kind of see the writing on the wall. He was just openly breaking the law, right?
Oh, I know.
So, you break the law, yeah, you might get away with it, but you might not,
Yeah.
And, so I would say I wouldn't place any positive bets on Giuliani at all, you know.
No, Giuliani and Roger Stone's been very quiet lately. I think
Him I haven't tracked in a while. I don't have any.
He's been very quiet. That's unusual for him.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe when.
Although he did tell off Ron DeSatan. At one point in time, he says, "Yeah, we know who you are, Ron." He's on Trump's side.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know who you are, you fat something, he called him. And he said, "We know your dark secrets."
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, in a way, it's good when they fight among themselves.
Yes.
I think the whole solution, one of the solutions to this midterm situation is the more you create rifts in their you know, friendships, and so that then you can peel off a certain number of votes. You don't need to get them all. I mean, many people will vote Republican either way, but if there are rifts, it's good for Democrats. So great, you know, something might slip out and cause damage. And I'm not surprised with Stone and Trump. And I mean, it's like one snake and a bigger snake, really, literally. I mean, DeSantis, that guy's scary, you know.
Oh my God, did you read that he just decided that some allocated monies, $34 or $35 million towards building something for his baseball team? Will not happen now because he's mad at them for believing in gun rights.
I mean,
and I said, this is the reason he's going to be voted out. People don't seem to realize he's pissing off Disneyland. He's pissing off the baseball community. People are like, you know what? Just because someone disagrees with you, you can't act like Hitler.
Yeah, no, and that thing that he did with Disney, he caused a huge hole in the budget doing that. I mean, it's complicated.
It's not going to go through, but what an idiot.
Yeah, well, a lot of it though is that in the GOP, they thrive on messaging. It's why Trump is the extreme of that. Everything is messaging, and they know that they put something out, and their voters never look at anything too closely. You know, like remember they were wearing the T-shirts. Read the transcript, and Jordan Klepper would say, "Did you read the transcript?" No. Well, then how do you know what it says? You know, this kind of thing, right? So DeSantis knows, put something out, a little bit like remember that thing when the Congress, led by a Republican committee, concluded that there had been malfeasance between Trump and Russia. They actually wrote a report in great detail saying, yes, this happened. Yes, there was collusion. Essentially, there was communication. And right away, Rubio went out and said the opposite. Like, even though it was written on paper, on Twitter, he said, no, none of that happened, because he knows that their guys don't even question, you know, what as long as they put out a negative message and it's according to their preferred party line, they're not going to look too closely. So DeSantis probably feels it doesn't really matter. I have to say that I'm against gun rights, and I have to be against everything the liberals are for, you know. And
well, what about Val Demings? You think she'll take Rubio out?
I'm not sure on her yet. I have to study that a little more. Like, see, the problem is that I don't have a time for her. I don't have a time for DeSantis. There's enough there for him to crash, but I don't have a time, and so something could save him. Rubio is another one that I have no time for. I only have the day. Right? So I have to tune in and see if I can distill between,
adjust by what's going on.
Yeah, because that would be amazing if Demings could, you know, it'd be fabulous.
I get a good feeling about her.
That she might win.
Yeah, I get a good feeling. Well, the January 6th commission, the first 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time gathering is, I think it's Friday, the 9th or the 10th of June.
Yeah, and that one, I mean, the most obvious by far, you know, is Trump's chart, because Trump's chart, he's probably right now shaking in his boots. I mean,
you think so?
Oh no, I know so. That a chart like that, because the thing about astrology is the psychology is always dead on. How you feel, it's not always necessarily going to be the case that you point a planet at something, you get the event then. There you get a broader range, but the feeling is unmistakable. His chart is just a royal mess with tremendous pressure from all kinds of directions. It's the sort of that feeling that there's no way out, because the material gets put out there, the information gets put out there, and he has no real response because genius Kevin McCarthy didn't put anybody on the committee. I mean, these guys, I tell you, it's amazing.
Oh my God, they're such. Oh, and then because it's got Liz Cheney and Adam. oh, it's a fraud, it's a work, just because they said they would work on both sides.
Yeah, well, Liz Cheney, I can't be as confident about her reelection as I am about the fact that her summer is amazing. And her summer corresponds with this, like, with June,
Okay,
July.
yeah.
I can't totally, I'd have to see the opponent and study it a little more, because they apparently Wyoming is really difficult for a Republican if the base turns against you.
Yes.
But, the Cheney family is pretty powerful, and she does
They
have
might
enough.
look at her as being logical and wanting the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So she's an example of that cycle, which, by the way, is also really helpful to Biden. And I know that people are, worried about Biden, his approval rating. I think you have to realize that approval ratings, they reflect the base of the party.
Yeah.
And Democrats are notorious for disapproving when they don't get what they want, right? Everybody wants something. And Biden has not been able to deliver on some of the Democratic wish list.
Because the Republicans are holding it.
Because they block him, exactly. But if you recall, Trump would be in the 30s, sometimes low 40s, but his level was 46. He was always going to get 46, which is what he got. Biden, when you go to vote, is going to get 50 plus every time. No matter how low he is, Democrats aren't going to vote for the Republican, right?
Well, also, the gas prices, they're, Ted Cruz is typing in on Twitter, oh yeah, the gas prices, American families, they don't give a shit about American families.
No.
They could care less. But yeah, gas prices it's bad, and it's bad everywhere.
It's bad everywhere.
Not the United States.
No, I mean, this is the thing that if we did have informed voters, honest informed voters, you can see what is happening. The president doesn't have a lot of control over gas prices.
No.
If there is worldwide at the moment, there's inflation in the European Union that is as higher than ours.
Yeah.
Because coming out of the pandemic, there's a lot of demand, and I'm not alone. Prices go up. Also, a lot of money was printed. It's true. When you print a lot of money, you can get inflation. And there's China that is underproducing because they're trying to control COVID. It's a worldwide malaise. And the world is like that. It goes in phases. And right now, we're in this phase. Blame Biden. I mean, Biden, I think, has done an amazing job. His key moment was bringing the NATO together. That's critical, because you got to stop Putin. That's necessary. People that say, that's not important. No, it's super important.
It's super important.
Super important. So I think Biden's place in history is cemented on that alone.
I'm telling you, I knew. And let me tell you something else. Somebody made a comment about, basically, what's so special about him compared to the last president? I said, because he's human.
Yeah.
He's human.
Yeah, I know.
He has feelings. He has compassion towards others. This other guy that was in office not only was he not interested in the Republican Party, he could care less what happened to people. It was all about how he looked. And that Ted Cruz, by the way, be bringing up stuff all the time. And I said, it's very interesting that you like to, talk about Biden administration, but yet you're going to criticize, right? But nothing in the projects about what you can do to help it. Nothing.
No, which, by the way, I would run on that. I mean, see, the thing is that a lot of it is you create a message that Republicans are meaner with their messaging, and Democrats tend not to do that. But I would be every day saying they got nothing. Just listen to them. All they have is complaints. Ask them what they do.
Oh, look what happened. And the whole world is suffering. It's not just.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And, by the way, I would say keep saying, what's their plan? There is no plan.
There is no plan.
And they're top to bottom corrupt. I mean, completely corrupt.
They're going to make sure women have no choice. They're going to make sure that, that the rich get less taxes.
Yeah. Well, they
it's
try.
got nothing to do with every Joe Blow at the kitchen table. I get tired of that kitchen table.
Yeah, and the thing is, I can't necessarily at times say why the cycles go a certain way. Like a year ago, I was looking at Biden's November 22 and saying, well, why is this guy so happy then? And I still say it makes zero sense to me that November looks so positive for Biden, unless you keep the Congress, because if he loses either the House or the Senate, He's got a big problem. And not only that, but then the shift in 2023 is things get smoother for him. Well, they wouldn't if, right? If
he lost. And the other thing is, oh my God, the Republicans, as soon as we take over, he's going to be arrested. He's going to be taken out in handcuffs. That's the first thing we're going to do. Some people eat it up. Most people don't care. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, it is the thing that it's, with the Republicans, it's 90% a messaging game. It's just saying things, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. What did she say? They're using a peach tree dish, she said. The woman, you just think to yourself, seriously?
And you know what?
Oh,
Can I tell you something? I want her to lose so bad, but she may win because she represents such a small group.
Yeah,
and,
no,
but she's just like talking to the air because nobody's going to listen to her.
See, that's an example. I had said in a video a long time ago, there's pressure on her chart, but I had mentioned, well, going into the midterms, it isn't good. I don't think there are enough Democrats in that district to vote her out. No. So there's a better chance that she might get blocked from running because I did read.
There's that if you were part of that, you can't run.
Right, exactly. So like the thing that got Madison, what's his name? He was implicated in that. Right. So she might be blocked on that account, but the odds of her being defeated are low because, you look at the numbers.
There's not enough. There's
not enough. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, Herschel Walker, did you ever get anything on him?
I haven't looked at him yet. I'll tell you this, though. I think that's another one of Trump's big miscalculations because he's running against not Ossoff, the other guy. What's his name?
The Reverend.
And the Reverend is very competent, right?
And a lot of people like him. I just did some readings with people in Georgia.
Yeah, and you can't play the race card on that one. And so then you've got a problem, in my opinion. And if without looking at the astrology yet, I would say the odds are excellent that seat stays where it is, which is another Trump mistake because he constantly does this thing where I'll just back the guy that's been on TV or is more famous, right? But that's not always the best way to go.
Well, did you see Herschel Walker announce it? I saw it on video. He said Trump is a liar. He never asked me to run. I ran on my own. He just jumped on my ship and tried to act like he's part of this, but he never was part of it.
Well, there you go. Then in that case, wonderful. Now they're fighting among themselves. I like that too.
Good. So where else should we go?
Well, I think, in the immediate sense, I would say that it's obviously going to be the committee hearings, right? Because it's going to take
that's coming up
most of June, right? Most of June. And I don't know if that is what leads to quite a strong summer for Biden in terms of the chart and where it is.
Right.
I'm not sure. But it might be something, right? Because that kind of thing does damage. When you put out that kind of information in detail, it tends not to be good, no matter how much the Republicans say, oh, this is all, a witch hunt.
Right.
It's not valid. It's whatever. It's partisan. It sounds like they have the evidence. And so,
yeah. And also Oz, they haven't come up with who won that one yet.
Yeah, I don't have a sense of that one again because of no times and so forth. Do you get a sense of whether Oz will be?
Oz is a nothing burger. I hope he does win because they'll blow him out of the water. He won't win.
Yeah, because
he won't win Philadelphia. He never even lived there.
Yeah, no, this is exactly what's been pointed out by some, and it connects to McConnell. McConnell is really experienced, and he knows that what you never do is put really good, or rather really popular base candidates who are anything from stupid to crazy, because then they can lose to the Democrat. And Trump getting in the way of this thing constantly is causing that to happen, which puts a lot of their seats at risk. And that's an example where I think the guy, isn't it Ryan, that is running who's running against Oz in Philadelphia? No, it's someone else. It's a different person.
It's Feta, the guy who had the stroke.
right. But the thing
Big
is,
tall guy, starts with an F.
because Philadelphia or Pennsylvania is such a split state, it's a big risk to put a person in there, that could cause a few people to peel away. That
Oh,
strategy.
also, he's not even from Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, that's true. Too.
But I
that-
think that guy's gonna win, even with the stroke. I think he's gonna do
the
better.
other guy, right?
Yeah.
The
Now,
Democrat.
listen, anything on Elon Musk?
That's another one with no time. My sense of Musk, though, is that the little I know of his chart, it feels to me like what's happened to some of these people. By the way, Trump included, to Putin. We haven't talked about Putin. We should say a little bit about him, but Putin and Trump and so forth. They have these up cycles where they're really doing well, and then they start to decline. And Musk, to me, the way he's behaving,
He's
'cause
crazy.
he's really kind of out to lunch, and he's putting himself at risk of massive lawsuits. He's over leveraged. This whole thing with Twitter went south. So my sense of him is that he's slipping. He's going into a down period.
Well, I
that's what
almost
would
feel
call it.
like because of all that money and stuff, he really was over in love with himself. It's almost like he almost had this attitude that I'm special and you're not. And he just has proven beyond a reasonable doubt, he's a whack job.
Well, how would you feel how would you behave if I gave you $50 billion?
You wouldn't even be able to reach me because my fat ass would be in the other room watching murder mysteries, eating bonbons. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, the interesting thing is money for some people, it really corrupts them. And in other people, they don't seem to be as affected. They remain relatively sane. But to me, he's a bit like a really intelligent teenager, who never really grew up.
Yeah, I think he's Asperger's.
He maybe, yeah.
It's always about him. It always
Yeah.
circles around to him.
Very
And
possible.
really, not that much feelings towards other. I think he can be a genius at times, but he does use a lot of geniuses to make up what he wants.
Yeah, no, and then it's really irritating. I mean, the thing about Musk that is most annoying is he tries to come off as this philosophical genius, and he's constantly doing things that are contradictory and coherent, where you realize, well, that's just hypocritical what you just did. And he'll do it again. And, he'll say, for instance, I want Twitter so that there can be total free speech. And then he starts banning people from being on Twitter. It's a joke.
Then he made Twitter prove that most of the people there aren't bots. And I'm sure Twitter was like, whoa, this guy's cray.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's true. But now apparently it's not going to go through. Is that what I heard?
Well, he even said it. He posted and said it doesn't look like it's going to go through.
Yeah, but then I think they can sue him. I'm pretty sure, because if you make a deal, I'm pretty
He's
sure.
supposed to pay them $1 billion.
Yeah, which I guess for him is chump change. But yeah, what I was saying about the topic of Putin, you could see this in his chart long before. By long, I mean a month or two, not that long, but long enough. You could see the health issues because there's this aspect in astrology that gets associated to health. And when you get one, maybe it's a little bit of health or maybe an injury, two, maybe a little worse, but he's just got a slew of these aspects, right? And they don't add, I mean, it's in the horizon. I mean, you're looking at years of these aspects.
Really?
So, yeah, he doesn't get out of this until 2025, and then it doesn't get better because then he gets oppositions, which is even worse, right?
Oh.
To his health. So to me, it makes perfect sense what they're saying, that something serious, when you see something serious is happening, when you see it printed by Newsweek and they mainstream, you probably can suspect it's right because those places check their sources. Because prior to that, we would see it in different places where you really couldn't tell if it was true. But to me, it makes perfect sense. Of course, then the other thing I read, which could also make sense, is that then you're tying the war to his health, but the odds being, unless he gets assassinated or some such thing, that the war might last as long as his health lasts, right?
Wow.
However, I'm hoping that what you said is what happens is that you saw him running and being chased out, or right? Wasn't that your
Trump?
Putin.
Oh, no, Putin's going down. And also there was I don't know if you saw, but Credible information that Putin was here in April in the United States getting treated for his cancer. And apparently he has a bad cancer,
Really?
according to the information. I'll find it. I'll send it to you.
Well, the part about the US, I hadn't found, but the part about it being a bad cancer, that I read.
Yeah, he was in the US. They announced, Russia announced, oh, Putin's fine. He's fine. There's nothing wrong with him. But yet he was here to see specialists because he has a really bad cancer. That's what they said.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, bottom line and all that, to my understanding, this is where Biden's role in keeping NATO together, because the world is really global now. People have to wrap their head around that. It's a very global community. Everything is connected to everything else. And it's incredibly important, super important that the West stay together as a bloc. In fact, this is what Russia's been working toward for decades. They try to constantly create rifts, and they were financing Brexit and doing all kinds of things in France. I mean, to try to create rifts in the alliance. So bringing it together is super important,
Right.
to push people like Putin back, and same with the leader of China. Same idea. They're backing
Right.
systems that are corrupt.
He feels like he's fading. I don't know why I get a feeling like he's fading.
Who?
The leader
Chinese?
of China.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me one bit. That's another one with no time. But even so, China looks to be much less strong economically than people say. That's something
Yeah.
that I've researched.
They've been talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another thing. The constant thing about the rising empire and this and that. Sure, but that's easier said than done.
So I really want to get this in if I can. Apparently a committee is set up to look at his dealings with that money he got him and Munchkin. They went over there to Saudi Arabia and made some fat $1 billion deals. I call him Munchkin.
Yeah, he's one that, again, no time of birth. And I had thought, based on the little information, or rather the limited information without the time, I had thought if he was going to get in trouble, it probably would have happened by now. But that's excluding the fact that the time might, draw him in. And yet, in comparison, Ivanka, whose time I don't have, but there's enough in her chart without a time for her to be in dire straits for quite a while, going into a number of years. But I don't know how that links the two of them, or, I have no idea. But all I can say is I hope so, because Kushner's a crook. I mean,
he's a crook.
To be backing, why would you be friends with that assassin? And I mean, like, is money that important to you? How does that even work? That guy's a murderer.
Trust me, Jared gave them information that they needed. Trust me.
Smoke. I mean, it's unbelievable. How do you sleep at
and
night?
let me tell you something. Back a long time ago, because my guides, even if it doesn't happen in the time frame you want, it usually happens. And even like Pompeo, I predicted Pompeo was going to go into some mess, and I think this is what's starting now. I predicted Jared going to jail. I saw Jared, I saw Trump losing, I saw Jared going to jail. I didn't see Ivanka going to jail, but I saw Don Jr. going to jail too.
Really?
So just those two in the Trump family. That
would be a welcome scene. It's what always happens, though. Isn't it amazing that of all these people, the person who most deserves jail time is Trump? But it's always
he might not make it till then.
Well,
I saw him sitting at a desk looking at a judge with a bunch of lawyers. I saw that. So he'll be on trial, but I feel like he won't actually go to jail.
And the thing with him is that the recent video I put up, he's got a lot of those Putin aspects, those health aspects. So those, when you don't get really sick, at minimum, they're like a maladjustment, out of sorts. You can't quite get a grip on what's going on, which is kind of what's happening to him based on all kinds of things, setbacks that he's had and different things like that. But, you're exposed to something going wrong, because I don't think he's, taking care of his health very much from what I can tell. And then when you start having, committee meetings where these things where they're airing all your stuff, it's probably going to, make his head is going to explode, and that kind of thing is not good for your health. So,
and his rallies, they're not booking out like they used to.
Yeah,
And they're
no,
having to
no.
do them in weird places because he didn't pay anybody for all the rallies he had while he was president. He left
Right.
everybody hanging
Yeah,
with no
no, yeah.
cash. So he's got a bad reputation. Nobody wants him at their state.
Yeah, and I mean, he could, the thing that I've always said about this guy the last few years, he's a fading star, and people keep worrying about this guy. I would not worry
He's a
about
nothing
Trump.
burger. And
No.
he keeps talking trash that makes no sense. You could even see the back of his head when the people, and they're all kind of looking at him weirdly. And a lot of people leave early from his rallies because it's just the same thing, different day. He has nothing. Listen, this is my game plan for the economy. Nothing.
No, no, and I mean,
This is my game plan for healthcare. Oh, he was going to give us the best healthcare ever, the best healthcare. You wait and see.
yeah, but
So
by the way,
what is it now? 4, 5, 6 years? We're still
isn't
waiting.
that an example? That's a great example of messaging without substance.
Yeah.
And yet you still get a lot of votes. So he would say, you remember on TV, look in the camera and say, I'll have the healthcare plan in 2 weeks. I'll have it in 3 weeks. It never came. Now, if you were a intelligent voter, you'd say, hey, I'm going to take you up on that because you said this and then you didn't do it. But they know, these guys know our people are, it's like a cult now, they want so much to push back the libs, and, these single issue things are so important. You can say anything you want.
Right.
But now that plays to him because that's what he is. He's just a lying sack of, excrement.
Yeah.
It's great, but it's also very self-destructive because what you're doing is you're destroying yourself slowly. It doesn't happen right away.
People are like, wait a second. Even Herschel Walker turned on him. No, he did not ask me to run. I decided to run on myself. He's just jumping on my bandwagon. He's a liar. He literally said Trump is a liar.
Yeah, no, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, he's not the only one. We've seen a number of people, reject him. Not to mention, look what happened in Georgia. This, by the way, is classic. That's how you see when a chart is downtrending, when things are getting worse, things like that happen. Of course, he, in a way, made it happen because he set it up. He put Purdue against Kemp. And I read the story that he was stunned to see Raffensperger win. Why would you be stunned? I mean, you could see the polls. But what it is that they're rejecting him because he was telling Georgia voters. Main
point. Right? That's the main point.
Exactly. But it shows you that things are not going well, and so he's long past this peak. I mean, there's a thing in his chart there that you see. The irony is that Trump reaches his peak even before he became president. That was the height of his planetary alignments. And once you get into 2017, it starts to be, it's not like this, but it goes like this. And I mean, he hasn't had any rest. If you think about it, he was getting challenged before he was sworn in. Do you remember in early January, Comey went to him with, hey, there's this dossier, and he was saying, no, I didn't do that. And so right away, and there's a downward slide, and now it's getting worse.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, Lindsey Graham. Did you happen to see his chart? They're coming up. A special grand jury is looking at him to do charges for the Georgia interruption.
Yeah, he has without a time again, but he is someone with a planet late in Cancer. So when you see a planet late in Cancer, Capricorn, Aries, or Libra, that's where Pluto is hitting. So if you are not a crook or you're not a liar, then that could even be good because it's a moment when you could really transform yourself and bring yourself to a new level. But if you've been a crook, it's obviously dangerous. So yes, that could be.
All of a sudden, he totally agreed with President Biden's what he wants to do for gun control. Everybody was shocked, but I almost felt like he knows he's in trouble, so he's going to try to kiss it. You know how he goes with whoever is on his side.
I'm just amazed, though. I'm amazed that he's on camera praising Biden's humanity. One time I saw him on camera, he was almost in tears.
He was in tears about what.
Biden is such an amazing human being. And then he goes on Fox, and says he's a terrible president and casts all kind of aspersions. It's just awful. It's awful.
Fair weather friend.
Selling your soul like that,
I know.
Yeah.
Well, my friend.
All right. It's been a pleasure. And I look forward to the next one. Let's see what comes up with.
Oh, we got to talk after we have the television made for TV specials.
Yeah, I bet that probably even from the first day we'll have something to work with because they may bring up some unexpected, something that we
They
can,
said there's going to be shock and awe. That's what they said.
yeah,
I'm ready for it.
that's Jamie Raskin, right?
Yeah,
Selling it.
I love it. I love it.